difficult to manage the expenses that surround the individual programs that we have across the board. And that's something that every campus will face, every athletic director and president will face if we lose a college football season. So again, back to my point, it's really important that we find the way to play college football and to maintain some semblance of order in that fashion.
This is how important, and we've talked about this. I think the athletic budget U of A is more than 80 million, close to 100 million.
It's about 100 million. Is
so football brings about 75-80% of it.
Right.
Basketball, the rest.
Right. I think Arizona's got a different split. I think it's more like a 60 football, and Arizona's got the most, the highest revenue. One of the highest revenue basketball programs in the country.
Right.
So I think at Arizona, it's more like a 60-40.
60-40.
What John Wilner said was that in general, it's like an 80-20 split. But at Arizona, it's not. But,
60-40.
Bringing up the whole basketball thing, though, and that gets us to the next question. We'll talk about all of this in a second.
Okay.
The last question, it was a question I asked, is, I think we're kind of taking – talking all about football, and is football going to happen, and these fall sports going to happen, but what about basketball? It starts not too much after football season. Practice has to start, and now you're talking about putting people in arenas. So here's Dave Hickey's response to, what's the situation with the winter sports, particularly as it relates to basketball?
It is kind of day to day at times, and as we talked about, we're focusing on June 1 right now, and the month of June, how we could bring people back potentially, how we get to a football start date. But we've begun to talk a little bit about our winter sports, and because all of us understand that it's not going to be business as usual. So going into McHale or other large arenas, and how we manage our fans, how we manage our student athletes is going to be different. And so we're going to begin to make preparations there. It feels like a lot of the conversation is certainly around modified fans environments, not full capacity environments. So, we'll have to see what comes up, as we keep moving down this road, and where we are with, again, testing, understanding, treatment. Are there other opportunities that arise that gives us more flexibility on our from the fan experience level to keep it very robust. But at the same time, I think we need to be prepared for modified crowd environments. People talk about 50% or 25%. It's, again, that's hard for all of us when we know how important those revenues are. But it needs to be a safe environment. We can't go into this haphazardly. We can't do this. We have to provide an environment that we're confident in, and that our fan base is confident in, that they're protected and safe, and our media.
So that's okay, 60-40, but it's still going to equal 100.
Right, it's still going to equal 100.
It's still equal 100, and if you don't have two of these things, you're done.
Right.
You're done.
If you can't, if you're going to have 50 or 25% capacity crowds, that hits Arizona hard, because, somebody like Washington State, they have 25% capacity crowd all the time.
Right.
Arizona fills up their arena for the most part. That's a big hit. So, again, what happens in basketball, though, is still going to be dictated by what happens in football.
No question. And Arizona needs every penny, because even on a good day, or meaning a good year, they're just up 10 million, maybe.
Oh, well, they just try to finish in the black. That's the goal.
Right.
That's the goal.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Sorry, son. Right. There's no groceries tonight.
Yeah. So I would love to hear from our listeners out there. If you want to be in on this conversation, we're going to talk a little bit more about Dave Hickey after the break.
Yeah, great. We'll come back. Good stuff, Jay. Thanks a bunch. We'll take a break here on 1030 The Voice. Come back. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. Let's get back to Mr. Sumlin, Coach Sumlin now. Yes, Jay?
Right. Coach Sumlin was on with the Pac-12 has been running these webinars this week, getting 3 coaches at a time to basically talk about some of the issues. They've been on with, God, now I forgot his name. One of the Pac-12, Yogi Roth.
Yeah, Yogi.
And so just kind of going through all the same topics and that type of thing. But again, it was good to hear from Coach Sumlin about what's on his mind, because we hear from everybody else. So in this first clip, Kevin Sumlin talks about the fact that he's got a new defensive coordinator. He didn't really have a spring practice, and how he's dealing with that.
Well, it's just like Mario said. As a new coach, or particularly guys on defense coming in, the good news is that they did get to see 3 or 4 practices, right? So there's a little bit of evidence on film, some meeting time, some workouts, so they have a little bit of an idea athletically up close. The developmental part, that obviously did not happen, but what happens now? And I think Mario hit it right on the head. It's about communication, it's about trust, it's about and during this time, our Zoom situations have been not just about football, but about life and getting to know guys, getting to know their families. So sometimes, your mom will peek their head in behind the Zoom, say hi. And everything we do is not about X's and O's, particularly during the last, month and a half, 2 months, because, lives have been changed, lives have been turned upside. Everybody's got a different situation. And our coaches have been and needed to be invested in our players' lives outside of football, and that the quickest way I think for new coaches, to really flourish and do the things that they need to do to be successful is to gain trust. And you'd say that's hard to do when you're not in front of them. I mean, right there face to face. But believe me, we've had enough meeting times through Zoom that the guys know. From everything from cookouts and virtual cookouts, virtual everything. So, yeah, it's been a different way to do things. But I think our guys, particularly defensively, the new guys, and our staff in general, have done a nice job of really communicating with our players and gaining that trust in this time where everybody's not together.
Trust, I guess, is the key.
Well, you know what, and it was funny because all 3 coaches kind of said the same thing, that while they haven't been able to practice and be on the field with each other, just the fact that they've been communicating with each other, they have had a chance to learn about each other beyond the football. And they think that'll pay some benefits down the road. So they were kind of looking for a silver lining there. And that's what a lot of that conversation was about, that these meetings that they're having, they're going through X's and O's and stuff, but, they're also just trying to feel each other out and learn who each other is. So
no one talked about talent. We'll get to that later.
We will get to that later. In this next segment, Kevin Sumlin talks a little bit about making sure that these guys are in shape. What that's going to be like when they get them on campus.
As the other coaches have alluded to, we've basically since the end of March have met as coaches with our league and have developed different plans of attack from a return to play standpoint, whatever those week periods look like, what those practices, what those workouts will look like, because it's our job to prepare our guys to prepare to play football and then be reactionary. Just like Justin said, that plan might change and go from A to B in a couple of minutes or a day, but our jobs are to prepare our team to be ready to play in the fall. And our strength coaches are a huge part of that, because for the time that our players have been away, for player safety, for their well-being, for them to be in the type of shape to play at this level, we're going to have to be cognizant of where they're coming from, what they're doing when they get back on campus, and at the rate and the speed that they do that.
Yeah, so that's another like I said before, that's a concern. I expect to see a lot of injuries.
Well, and the thing of it is that, these guys are used to having, state-of-the-art equipment to work with and to get in shape with. Some of these guys probably might not even have, their own weights or bench press at home, and they're having to figure out other ways to do the work that they need to do. And I'm sure that, the strength and conditioning people at the U of A, are giving them ways to do that, but it's certainly not like being in the weight room.
No.
And you're right. I mean, I think that there's some concern about, what these players are going to be like, when they get here and start practicing football and then get into games.
We'll see, because they're going to have to be really prepared. I'm sure they're doing some things on their own right now, but like to your point, where are they doing it and how are they doing it?
And what are they doing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No question.
Exactly. In this last segment, they talk about the question was, what happens if the season gets pushed into January? They actually all were asked, would you prefer the season to start late and play fewer games and end at the regular time, or if you had to start late, play the full season, have it go into January? And then then this question came up of, what if the entire season gets pushed into January? What happens there?
I'll be honest with you. We've had the discussions. I think coaches are different. Again, it's all about player safety. What's best for them? I think, Tony, that it's more after January 1st, you get into some other issues, right? You get into some eligibility issues. You get into classes starting for the next semester. Some guys who may have been able to graduate, some incoming people. And let's be honest, if the NFL doesn't change what they're doing, you got some guys that might be affected by the combine or by the draft. So, and then, what does that say for next season? What does that say for players that are coming back to your program? And if that season starts, then are you trying to play 24 games in a 12-month calendar? So it's not as easy as that. And just looking at a January schedule that goes through that and impacts on a lot of different things, and in particular the spring and the next fall. So yeah, those scenarios have been discussed. Everybody's got different opinions about it, but ultimately guys want to play football. The players want to play. The coaches want to coach, and we want the safest model yet. And if that's the model, that so be it. But it's going to affect things for the next year more so than people are talking about right now.
Yeah, no question. So you're a student athlete. You start school August 24th, like they say, and people come back, whatever percentage. Students are done by December 5th.
Mid-December.
If they go to a bowl game, they go to a bowl game. They sacrifice their time away from school for 3 weeks by going to a bowl game. So now you don't have a break. You don't have a break.
Right.
Because he's talking about going into January, like you say. There's no break from school.
Right, exactly. They'll be, in that scenario, they're going to be in school for the whole semester, and sometime around mid-December or early December, they're going to start practicing to get ready for, to start in early January. It sounds to me like the coaches think that's, if they have to do it, they'll do it, but that's kind of like short of not playing,
right?
That's a worst case scenario for them.
That's how it sounded to you. I think I agree with you.
But really think about it. Let's say you're a senior, and you're going to be done with school in December.
Mm-hmm.
So your football season ends in December. Your school is done in December. You're going to start thinking about the NFL or going to go get a job or whatever. And if you want to play that last season, you got to stick around for another semester. How many,
Right.
are you going to want to do that?
Right.
And then, like as he said, what happens if the NFL does play its season? What's the NFL going to do? What are they going to do with their draft? Are they going to wait until June, before they hold a draft? There's combines. There's all kinds of things in play. So, and really, I had been one of those who had heard that they could do this in January, but I hadn't thought of any of this.
Right. When you're a student, you want to go to school, play, and then get out of school.
Get out. And if you're done, if you get your degree in December,
see you later, baby.
sayonara, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Are you going to want to stick around and get beat up for another, and have to go to school for another semester to play football?
Imagine if you get hurt.
Or imagine if you're a good player, but you're not going to the NFL.
Right.
You're going to go get a job. You want to start your life, and you don't have an NFL future.
Which most don't.
Right. Are you going to play that last season of football? And if you don't, and if a bunch of players don't, where are they going to get players to fill those spots?
No, that's a good point. It's a good point.
That is a really bad scenario. I really think it is.
This is getting more convoluted, complicated, just so many levels.
Well, what it is that we're getting more information about everything that they have to think about, and they're trying to cover everything. And I'm sure they've thought about a lot more stuff than we have. This is an example. I didn't think of any of that.
Yeah.
But these people are being paid to think of that stuff. But there's a whole lot more involved than any of us have any idea.
Than just showing up and playing and getting ready.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, think about, again, the major scenarios are start on time, play all your games, finish on time.
Mm-hmm.
Start late, decide whether you're going to play fewer games or extend the season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Start really late and go into January, not have a season at all, or start on time but you don't have fans at your games. Now basketball is going to start. What are you going to do there?
Right.
I mean, there are so many things that these people have to come up with. I'm glad I'm sitting right here and not sitting over there, because I think my head would spin.
They're getting paid a lot of money to sit over there.
Well, they are. they are. But
lots of money, dude.
But I think there's a lot of pressure.
Oh, there's no question.
There's so much pressure because as Dave Hickey said, no football is almost not an option.
Yeah. There's no football. There's nothing at the university.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think two of my kids have jobs in the athletic department. What's going to happen to them?
Right.
If there's no football.
Right. Man,
it's there's a lot to think about. And again, what I think what's going to happen is this stuff's going to start to whittle down, and decisions have to start being made within the next few weeks.
This is what a year is, isn't it? Donna Summer?
Donna Summer, man.
I had a crush on her when I was young.
The queen of disco.
I get it. I like it. I've never been played here, but I like it.
Excuse me, but the late queen of disco,
the late queen, that's true. Hey, let's take a quick break here on Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera with my co-host, Jay Gonzales. Very busy, good news day.
Yeah, it was.
Information day.
A good information day. And I think that I know this, this topic is part of our show pretty much every day in some form or another. But, it's what's happening right now, and it's affecting everybody. And so I think, to bring what some of the local guys are talking about was real important for our fans to hear about Dave Hickey. There are a number of other points that were discussed. For instance, in the in the press conferences. So we'd love for you to give us a call if you want to get in on the conversation at 520-790-2040. But one of the things that was talked about was tickets.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Dave Hickey said that they already extended the season ticket deadline, so they're hoping to June 1. It's normally May 1, so they extended a month, and that they're hoping that people will go ahead and get their tickets.
But also payment schedules have been kind of
right. They've instituted payment schedules, so you don't have to pay it all at once. And then he also tucked in there that if we have a shortened schedule, or you can't have you can't go to a game because there's only a certain amount of capacity that's allowed, or whatever. If there's a game that you don't get that you've already paid for, they'll find a way to do refunds and stuff like that. So
there's no question that no matter what happens, the administration, athletic administration, is going to be hit. Depends what the percentage is going to be.
Well, exactly, and one of the things that I keep hearing, a theme that I hear, on other shows in the media, or listening to other people, is that, again, this is not going to be there. It's not going to be a mess, but it's not going to be what we would normally be used to. Everybody's going to have to get used to the fact that it's going to be really different, and things may happen, even if they say, okay, we're going to start, and something might happen that upsets the apple cart and upsets, the season might get going, and everybody feels good about it, and boom, something happens, and now it all changes again, and people are going to have to get used to the idea that the season could even start, and we could be all happy and sitting at Arizona Stadium, and then something could happen, and it could change everything.
Sure. Everyone has to leave the building or whatever. Because what happens if a kid gets sick? Right.
If a kid gets, if a kid on a team gets sick, and let's say 2 or 3 other guys on that team also get sick because of that. Now, does that team just stop playing? Can you isolate those players, and the other players are still okay? Is there enough testing capability to allow you to keep going? Or, if something spreads on your team, are you done for the year? Now everybody that was on your schedule gets a forfeit, and how does that play into, say, the college football playoff?
What about the team?
So many scenarios right there.
What about the team that you just played?
Exactly. And then, so now if the center has been breathing on the defensive line all this time, and he's the one that's got coronavirus, now, how do you test the other team? And then what about, maybe you don't find out until that team has played another team.
Right.
So it's, but again, they're thinking of all those things and trying to figure out how to handle all of that.
Thomas, I always enjoy your perspective. I hate to wake you up. What do you think?
There's not enough coffee for me today, Steve. It's one of those days. My first thought was, they're I understand it disrupts the college life and the cycle that they're used to.
Right.
If we're pushing start dates back and whatever. My very first thought, and remember, I told you I'm a cynic, is cry me a real-world river. We all live in the real world with full-time jobs, or at least those of us who have full-time jobs, and real concerns and all these other things. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not too put out by the concerns of a college football consortium. If they have to play in January, they have to play in January. If the poor babies have to stay here through the winter break and go to college, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you got to go to class. I'm sorry you got to play football. But you know what? It's a privilege to play football.
Get off my lawn, Tom.
It's a privilege to go to college.
Get off my lawn, Tom. I do like the perspective because I understand what you're saying. I like that point. I don't know if I'm strong in that point, but I understand what
you don't even have to agree with me.
No, because I kind of do, but I don't. I don't want you to get off my lawn, though. I get what you're saying, and it's probably true.
They live in a bubble. They live in a bubble, and I understand that when look, if anybody moves my cheese, I get upset too. I get it, but I'm sitting over here going, man, I don't even get 40 hours a week. I'm making minimum wage.
No,
I don't feel too sorry for you.
I get it. That's why I said they make a lot of money for these decisions, so you get compensated. Both of you guys are right in my mind, and there's no right answer.
Tom, football is life. Okay, that's all I have to say. Football is life.
Well, didn't you say you were going to have Commissioner Sankey on at some point from the SEC? That's
Greg Bird.
Greg Bird.
Oh, okay.
And you think, and if I think football is life, can you imagine what they think it is?
Yeah.
I lived in
the
SEC country for 8 years.
And-
8 years.
And
It's religion.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
It's not just life, it's religion.
There you go.
So
Well-
they're going to push hard to play.
the one thing is everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah.
It's not a pretty boat. It's a sinking boat, pretty much, where they're bailing water right now.
Right. It is. I mean, again, I don't want to say my existence revolves around college football,
But
it sort of does. And every Saturday is a big deal to me, whether there's a home game or not.
yeah,
And so and even Sunday. So I think we can't argue about whether or not it's a huge part of our society, because it is.
Mhm.
And not just in the the games on the field, but the revenue that's generated, the people that have jobs in it, and all of that. It's a major revenue. It's a major part of our economy.
no question. In fact, well, let's assume everything was equal and everything was fine. Arizona was going to have, or is going to have, this schedule that's going to be one where they may not win 4 games. Realistically, I think we've talked about that before. You might think a little bit more, but 4 games. Let's assume 4 games. And the crowd is not going to be big anyway. True? The 28, 30,000.
Well, it wasn't last year. Yeah,
right.
for
So
sure.
30,000. So you already know they're going to be in the hole, because they need these people. Now, if it's not 30 and it's 15, yikes.
Yeah. Well,
no
sure.
matter the situation.
For sure. But, again, they're already planning for that. They're already taking some of those contingencies right now with pay cuts and furloughs and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And lack of rehiring right now. They still haven't hired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll get into that one in a second, because there was a comment made about that.
Right. Great. Susie, thanks for calling.
Hey, guys. I'm missing something. Okay, we're the Pac-12 because there's 12 teams, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Washington, and Oregon. There's the 5. Everything else is California. California already said no.
No, they're going to play.
There's
I thought they said no.
No, the Cal State University system has said no. University of California and UCLA are both part of the University of California system, so
Right.
they have not ruled out football in the fall. USC is a private school,
Right.
so they'll be directed by what they say in California. Now, I know Governor Newsom has come out and said that that there aren't going to be sports allowed in stadiums through the end of the year.
Okay.
But that was, I believe that was more directed to the pro sports. I don't know why college sports would be different, but listening to the webinar today, Justin Wilcox, who's the head coach at the University of California, said nobody's told me we're not playing. So they're moving forward as if they're playing. Now they may not, but as of now, they're moving forward as if they are. And in fact, he said that one of the contingencies that they're putting together is if, let's say, California does shut down and they say you can't play at your stadium, could they take the team somewhere else, train, practice, and play somewhere else, because they can go to school online, and they might just take the team out of California and go play somewhere else. That's a contingency that they've put together.
But could they really call that part of the Pac-12 if they did that?
Well, sure. It's still the same team.
Sure.
They're just not play. They just wouldn't be playing at their stadium in Berkeley.
Right.
And Stanford is the other school there is Stanford, and they also are a private school. So
Yes,
Stanford
it is.
Stanford and USC are going to go based on what
Sure.
the government
Right.
and health officials say. The UCLA and University of California not only have the government officials telling what they're going to do, they've also got the heads of the California university system.
Right. So that report you're referring to was not premature. It was just not inclusive to the Pac-12.
That's what I heard, and that's what Justin Wilcox said, because I did hear that Gavin Newsom say we're not having sports in stadiums through the end of the year, and then I heard Justin Wilcox say nobody's told me we're not playing.
Well, Newsom sort of kind of talks out of both sides of his mouth, too. If you say, oh, you know what, we got to have it. Oh, well, let me think about it overnight. And then the next day, oh, you know what, let's go for it, kids.
Well, again, and then there's room to maneuver.
There's wiggle room.
Right, there's room to maneuver, because he said that, a month ago?
Mm-hmm.
Next month, things may be all different, and they might
That's
say,
what I
okay,
think.
we're all right.
Yeah. Good.
Susie, thanks for the call. Thanks
I
for
am
always
thrilled.
listening, too.
You
I
made
appreciate
my day, boys. You made my day.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you. That's one person. That's good. Made her day. So, no, there's a lot of things, and the sand is always moving.
Well,
Right.
guys, let's talk about that for a second. Is it realistic that if all the California teams have to go play somewhere else, let's say they go to, I don't know, Las Vegas or wherever, is that realistic for them to pick up and move someplace? Would they clump at a neutral site or pick different stadiums? How'd that work?
Well, the point that Justin Wilcox made was that, a lot of these teams in preseason, they go isolate.
somewhere, right.
They go isolate themselves. Down here at the U of A, they used to go to Camp Cochise, and you want to talk about isolation. I mean, that was isolation. So they've done that in the past, so they have the logistics to do that. The question is, do you do it for an entire season, and how does that work?
Mm-hmm.
But again, what Justin Wilcox said is that's one of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to play somewhere like Boise because obviously they'll be using their own stadium. It'll be, where do they go? That's the
Right.
question. Where do they go play?
Exactly. One of the issues that Dave Hickey addressed was, the issue of how many students need to be on
Right.
campus for them to be able to bring athletes on campus. And the quote was, we need to have an environment that we can bring a portion of those at least back so that we can introduce student athletes as well. So it sounds like to me, what they're saying is if some students are on campus,
That's good enough.
that'll be good enough
Yeah.
to bring student athletes back.
So that's probably could be anywhere from 10 to 20%.
Right, and again, they've even the California State university
Mhm.
system that said we're going to be majority online classes. They're still going to have some students on campus. So I don't know that they've ruled out that there's going to be sports. They've just said we're going to primarily online classes.
Right. Good show today. I think tomorrow's is going to be fun and fantastic.
I'm excited to talk to Terry Francona. I think he and I are about the same age because he was on the 1980 national championship team. That was my junior year of college, and I think he left after his junior year. So I think we would have graduated from the same class.
Looks like it's going to be fun tomorrow. Francona. Fun. Fantastic. Francona.
Be sure to be here, Terry Francona.
Okay, thanks, everybody, for listening. 10:30 The Voice. See you tomorrow.